Om Shanti and good evening. I'd like to ask everyone to please come forward. It's a very big hall and a slightly smaller gathering, so please come. We promise we won't bite. Come. Have any of you, I'm actually sure many of you would have come across the book, The Alpha Point, or Discovering Spirituality, and more recently, Eastern Thought for Western Mind. You would know these books, and of course they've been authored by our brother Anthony. And so I was very determined that we should be able to hear from Anthony because he'll be leaving in a few days. And having met many of you, I know the great interest in going into the depths of things. And so a very good instrument of Baba for doing this is our brother Anthony. So I'm glad that we could make this happen tonight. We have a few questions that have already come in, and I'll be using those for our session because we actually only have about an hour together. Anthony's been in Gyan for 32 years. Is there anybody who is meeting Brother Anthony for the first time? Oh, so there are quite a few. 32 years. He's originally from Australia, one of the first people from the West to come into Gyan. And from Australia he was sent to Greece, I think. No, Italy, right?
England.
England.
I took Gyan in England.
Took Gyan in England, but then you were sent to Italy to open the centers there. Switzerland, Italy, Spain. Greece, Spain, Turkey, Romania,
Hungary.
I think we should give a round of applause. First question I'd like to ask Anthony is, Daddy Genki a few months ago looked at us after a class, and after a few moments of silence she said, "You have to learn how to love God." Could you talk to us about that? What is it that we have to learn so that we can love God?
I think before we actually can learn, we have to maybe unlearn, but maybe that's too difficult, huh? To unlearn all the wrong concepts that we gathered within ourselves. But I think the best way to learn is actually to recognize some of the facts about Baba and then surrender to that. When we surrender, then we are able to experiment and experience. Because sometimes if we just leave it on only learning, maybe I just use my intellect. But real learning also requires your heart. We learn with our intellect and with our heart really working together. And a lot of silence. I have to give space for Baba to give me experience. Because, without experience I don't think I can learn. Because it is the experience of spiritual love, it's the experience of soul consciousness that makes my intellect more subtle, makes my intellect bigger. And I have the capacity to understand things more quickly. But when it comes to the love of God, then I also know that I have to be clean. I pay attention on being clean. That is, not being pulled by the unnecessary. That's, I think, the hardest thing to do, because sometimes, big things we can conquer, but it's little things that we find difficult. Waste thoughts about others, pulls or attachments that maybe are not so noticeable to others, but they may be there in the self, and they interfere in the connection and the communication with God.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, is it about learning how to make that, or come into that experience?
Yeah, to learn to come into the experiences, to daily position myself every morning and times during the day, to be able to position myself. And to position myself is actually also to churn his knowledge. When I churn Baba's knowledge, when I churn his personality characteristics at different times during the day, that also is a great help, that when I sit down in meditation to experience him, I can. Meditation may be, concentrated meditation may be, 1 hour, half an hour, 1.5 hours. But during the rest of the day, I need to be attentive to where my feelings are going, to where my thoughts are going.
Could you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, I think a common concern amongst a lot of Brahmins right now is that I'm not experiencing Baba as much as I want, or as often as I want, or when I want.
Well, we usually don't experience very well because we don't exercise enough. My intellect has to do more exercise. It has to go into the research of Baba's sanskaras. This is what Brahma Baba did. Brahma Baba's remembrance was going very, very, very deep into Shiv Baba's sanskaras. And when he went deep into Shiv Baba's sanskaras, he felt, yes, this is my inheritance. The inheritance of, pure happiness, pure love, pure peace. And this awoken also his own sanskaras, his own original blueprints. And so the reason why we can't experience this, we don't give usually time and attention to it. We don't research. We research many other things, what others are doing, what they're not doing, how they should be doing it. We're researching a lot about, things, what is contentment, what is stress, how positive thought, which is fine. Not the other things. Researching other sanskars, not so fine. But Baba every day in the Murli is revealing himself. And it's not a matter of just, thinking of a point, but actually linking it to a dana that I want today. For example, my dana may be, I really want to come closer to Baba. I really want to come closer to God. Because if we don't pay that attention, we come closer to Maya, quite automatically, quite quickly. But to actually teach the intellect, the mind, the feelings, to direct these three things towards God does require my attention. And when my intellect is busy in researching, I don't mean busy in like rushing and doing a lot, but that subtle attention, and I prioritize this relationship, I prioritize this friendship with Baba, and so I will give it time and space during my day. I don't make excuses. Because if I make excuses, it's really like a disrespect. Yeah.
Give us an example of an excuse.
Oh, well, the classical excuse. You know the classical excuse? I don't have time, I'm too busy. The other person with me, you know, whether it's in a center, whether it's somewhere else, is a big obstacle. I'm sick, I'm this, I'm that. There's many excuses.
Because what I can understand from what you're saying is that it doesn't necessarily have to be sit-down time that I'm giving to his, getting to know him and really researching his sanskars. It really should now come onto the minute-to-minute throughout the day type thing. So at that level, what are the excuses we're giving?
You know, if we are at work, we have to concentrate on our work, but there's always spaces where I can just step back and relax. Actually, when I'm sitting, yes, it can go much deeper. My churning, my attentiveness can go much deeper, definitely. But during the day, those little windows, to open them. Because, you know, if we are 10, 12 hours outside and we never open a window of soul consciousness, what will happen? You know, when windows are closed in a house, after a while the air is stuffy, you know, you can't breathe. And so it's not that I have to wait for my evening meditation. I just, during the day, open the window of spirituality. For a second. Baba often says, you know, a second, a moment, that's not too long. But even that, because there's the habit of rushing, or there's the habit of getting involved in actions, we forget to open this window, and then it becomes very difficult, my concentration or my meditation in the evening as well as the next morning.
Anything else you can say about how we need to learn to love God?
I think the basis of any learning is humility and enthusiasm. If I want to learn something well, I have to be humble. And if I want to experience what I'm learning, or for new horizons to open, there should be enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is to see everything fresh. There's a freshness and there's a newness in the way I see things, in the way I feel about things. And Baba has often said that humility is the great protection of the soul, because on a spiritual path, including the path of Gyan, usually the more years you have, the deeper should be the spirituality, the greater should be the enthusiasm. But sometimes it doesn't always work like that. And I think one of the reasons for that is a subtle lack of humility. And so when I keep myself like a child, then I keep myself to being guided by Baba. And then, you know, this takes away a burden. You know, there's sometimes we keep a burden. I know, or I have to know, or I do, or I have to do. I have to be this. Sometimes with this creates a burden on a person, on a soul. Whereas actually, if there's humility, I'm able to see how Baba is Karvan Karavanha, that his presence is there. Confluence age means the presence, the direct presence of God in my life. This is the confluence age, and this is the meaning of being a Brahmin. The constant presence of God in my life. So, of course it's subtle. So I have to step away from the gross and tune in. But it's there. It's the subtle is the greatest reality.
I think many of us would be concerned about this thing called ego. And it's probably best to approach it from its antidote, which is humility. But anything else that you can tell us about overcoming ego or reducing its power over us?
I think actually to overcome ego, there's a number of things, but maybe one way is to recognize the way ego works in me, because it doesn't always work in the same way in everybody. What is ego? Ego is attachment to yourself. And when there's this deep attachment to yourself, there's a lot of there's a lot of variety. There's sometimes a big fluctuation between feeling superior, between feeling inferior, between feeling I can do it, other times I can't do it. But the real antidote to ego is to keep returning to my original soul self. Baba says, every morning, how many times if you count? How many times does he say, consider yourself a soul? 5, 6, 7, 8 in the Muli? And this is the way that I overcome ego. Okay, one thing is to recognize how it works in me, but I may recognize, but the power is not there. But to get the power is to get the experience, to feel how I am eternally, I am a soul. I feel my eternity. I feel my original peace. And especially I will feel my original freedom. Because you see, when I am free of myself, there won't be any of the vices. When I'm free from myself, I am automatically detached. I won't have to worry about attachment to things or people. When I am free of my old self, yes, I naturally remain in that soul-conscious position. And what does it mean to feel soul-conscious? Well, I feel my eternity, my uniqueness, how I really am an actor in this drama for all of eternity. You feel this, you just don't understand it. So I don't think I think it's very important to realize we don't have to battle with ego. We don't have to battle with attachment. We just have to always remember the original. To remember the original. Again and again, to make this exercise. It's like a mental gymnastics. I remember I am this. But with that remembrance, faith. If remembrance doesn't have faith, remembrance will slip away. It will become something intellectual. It will become external rather than internal. And when these things become external, that's when I start to get bored, I start to get lazy, I start to get careless, I start to feel empty.
You mean remembrance gets external?
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
That it's just done with the intellect or the duty. Yes, I remember I'm a soul. Yeah, I remember Baba. In that way, it's more intellectual rather than experiential.
This concept of the gap between what we know and what we might even be experiencing when we sit down in yoga, and then what's actually coming through in our personality and our character, a gap between what we know and experience and how we're behaving. Why is there still such a gap? What can we do to close it?
Usually the reason for the gap is that we don't examine ourselves very well. We examine others very well, but we don't examine ourselves very well. So actually, if I'm examining myself, Baba said in the last muli, keep a timetable of your thoughts. Who has done this? Because thoughts are so slippery. And really, can I check every thought? Can I? Baba said we should. And so the gap comes because many stray thoughts come in. I don't notice them. And those thoughts are seeds that then stimulate old habits, stimulate old patterns, and before I know it, I am in a consciousness that I didn't expect. I'm in a consciousness that I wonder how I got here. And that is because the timetable of my mind is not sharp. It's not accurate. It's quite loose.
So timetable means just the quality, the standard of my thoughts as I'm going through my day?
Yeah, the quality of my thoughts. I'm checking how many thoughts, and I check, is this thought really necessary? Because a thought will always, of course, be connected with an emotion and with a feeling. And once a strong emotion takes over, it's very difficult to be stable and to recognize actually what is happening. But I've been shoning on this also, what Baba is saying, the thought. And so the practice, to be able to watch your own mind, via the intellect, I, the soul, observe my mind. I can observe the thoughts. And Daddy has often been telling us actually, don't think. So what's that then? Because when we are not filled with thoughts, what are we filled in with? Something must be there. We're not just blank. Because, to remain blank is to be unconscious. So what is it, And Baba has said this, remain in awareness, become the embodiment of awareness and not the embodiment of thinking. Why? When we have many thoughts, there's no breath, there's no space. Baba cannot touch the soul. Maybe even knowledge cannot touch the soul. The soul, what does that mean when knowledge doesn't touch the soul? There is not realization. Many thoughts, many emotions. And so if I don't learn really to put a break and just become aware, for example, where I am peace, I am a soul, and just remain in that awareness, then I will not be creating unnecessary thoughts. And I, the soul, decide when to think, what to think. This is a very, very subtle exercise. And so the gap remains between knowledge and achievement, knowledge and behavior. The gap will remain until really I learn to keep this timetable of my thoughts and my feelings. Because that state of inner silence, that state of introspection and observing, in the beginning I will filter thoughts, but then a higher stage than filtering the thoughts is to just remain in the awareness. You know? Om, I am a soul. See, it's one thing to know this intellectually, it's another thing to give a whole class on it, but it is totally another thing to really be in the awareness of that. And how to be in the awareness? It's my daily window opening, you know, opening the windows of my day.
What about just falling in love with God versus this kind of attention and window opening and checking and changing? Is there any just sweet and wonderful ride?
You know, when we begin in Gyan, or when we begin in Gyan, or when we begin a task, don't you notice there's a lot of spontaneous enthusiasm, spontaneous interest. But if it is not sustained, if it is not nourished in the right way, that enthusiasm starts to come down, because especially in the beginning, Baba gives us the response of our love or our searching for him, and he gives it unconditionally. But we can't remain dependent on being given that. Because Baba loves the soul, Baba wants the soul to stand on its own feet and to be able to be free. And then I have to come into partnership with God for my own liberation and my own growth and my own maturing. And there's a lot of sweetness in that. It's not all heavy work. And I do not feel that checking your thought is a burden or it's heavy work. Why can't that be sweet and easy too? You know, because sometimes people think sweet and easy means to do nothing. You know, just let Baba do it. No, but actually, if I'm involved and I'm progressing and I'm doing this and I'm achieving, then actually there's a lot of sweetness in that achievement. And I think if any of us have done anything, like if you've planted a garden, you know, you have to work at it, you have to, you know, spray it, the flowers, you have to water them, but you don't feel it's a burden.
Daddy also said a few months ago, you need to have compassion for yourself. So that's where you're heading with this point you just made. Doesn't have to be hard, it can be a sweetness too. Can you say more about this compassion for yourself?
You know, we lack the compassion for ourselves when we get careless. Because when we get careless, it means I'm not prioritizing my self-respect. And whatever happens, happens, you know. Whatever is in drama is in drama. I hope that things will work out. This is kind of a lack of, it's a lack of compassion. But the lack of compassion for myself is that I don't use time properly. I find always, you know, convenient excuses or ways to get out of something. I may even blame my own sanskaras. You see, when I blame my karma, or blame my past, or blame my character, or blame my sanskaras, this is a lack of compassion.
What would compassion be?
I have to tune in to what Baba has told me I am. This is compassion. And this is also respect for him, that I'm listening to him. I remember Daddy Kumarka once, she was saying this, when you don't have your self-respect, it means you're not respecting Baba the teacher. He's told you opposite things, but you keep going back to the rubbish. So why aren't you listening to him? So,
why aren't we listening to him?
Why?
I mean, what is this self-destructiveness?
I don't think any of these things are done on purpose. It's just habit. It's like to depend on external supports, whatever they may be, person, name, fame, role, position, service. It's a habit to create my sense of value by something external or someone external. It's a very, very deep habit. And so to listen to, let's say, the wrong things about myself, whether it's from myself or whether it's from others, it's a habit. And so it is only with a very faithful thought, not just determined thought, but faithful thought in who I am, that then I gradually start to break this habit. But we are not concentrated on breaking the habit, we are concentrated on releasing the original goodness of the soul, the original peace of the soul. My concentration has to be there, not on the breaking. Because actually we shouldn't, it's not a matter of breaking habits, habits dissolve.
That's more compassionate.
Yes.
Sweeter.
Yes. But usually we become boxers, and you see, dissolving also is an aspect of surrender. I trust God's love for me, I trust it, and so I'm able to open and I surrender. I'm able to examine very clearly what is there. It doesn't bother me. I know I am loved, and also this is how it is now at the end of the kalpa. The rubbish is there for everybody. So just to open and to offer and to surrender. And so that makes things a lot easier, but sometimes because there's a lack of self-offering, because there's a lack of surrender, I start to get into a battle. Why do we get into a battle? Is because I have knowledge of what I should be, what I should do. There's a block, there's a habit. Instead of fully surrendering it, I use knowledge to battle it. I shouldn't, it's not good, I mustn't. And so what happens with that battling, the actual habit can get stronger because I'm focusing my attention on it. I'm putting my energy into it. So I need to go totally in another direction. And this is why the early morning when Baba says, remember me, remember who you are. From Amrit Vela and Muli, we get this direction. Plus, because it is the confluence age, because it is a blessed time, Baba can do any miracle on the soul. But I have to be open for that every morning.
What does that mean? How do I do that?
Just be there. It's not so difficult. It's just a matter of being there and being accurate during the day, not getting loose. But you see, I think we manage to conquer gross things, but we don't manage to conquer ordinariness. Because ordinariness doesn't bring us instant sorrow. Gross things can bring us instant sorrow, like, for example, getting angry. Really gossiping or thinking negatively about others. It's instant, usually. But ordinary things, like a little carelessness, just, wasting time, the effect of that is much, much, much later. And usually the effect of that is, or the result of that is dryness. You become dry if you're not exercising on a daily basis.
This self-offering that you were talking about, you're surrendering the blockage or the obstacle versus beating away at it. Is this what Baba is referring to when he was saying you have to learn how to give your burdens to me. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yes, Baba often says you have to, give your burdens. I'm willing to take them. I'm willing to dissolve them. You don't have to fight with them. But there are a few little steps that are needed for this natural offering. And the first step is to have the honesty and the courage to pinpoint what is it I really need to change. I need to pinpoint that. That is, to acknowledge it. And not to have any fear or guilt about it, because usually fear and guilt put a block on my own self-offering, on giving my burdens to Baba. Because sometimes the burden keeps returning, doesn't it? You don't want a habit, you feel you've offered it, but it comes back in a variety of colours. Mm-hmm. But I have to be a bit realistic, Many lives with this habit, it's not going to go away just with one offering. You may have to do quite a few. Because sometimes, it's not like these instant mashed potatoes, add milk and you get instant mashed potatoes. There's no instant purification.
There's no instant mashed sanskaras?
No instant dissolving. That's why every day is important, because the dissolving takes place every day. And so it's not a matter of offering the burden once. I may have to keep offering it. Because the soul sometimes is very deeply attached to that habit. It's deeply attached to the things that give it sorrow. Consciously it doesn't want it, but unconsciously the habit of many lives is there. So I pinpoint and I offer without fear or guilt, and I trust. It's very important to, in a relationship, trust is very important. And when I trust Baba fully, then I'm able to give that. And when you're sitting in the concentration, you have the thought not to battle with that sanskara or habit, but there's that thought, I'm offering it to you. To speak to Baba in the second person. Not say I'm offering it to God, I'm offering it to Baba. Now, in this moment, in this awareness, I offer this to you. I wish to be liberated. I offer it to you. And just to remain in that thought, to remain in that awareness of surrendering it. And don't think, is it happening, is it not happening, how will it happen, who knows, it may come again. All these thoughts of doubt should not be there. And if they start to come, I have to stop them. Baba says, every 5,000 years I come, and this is my job. He likes it, He likes it, and the cleaner his children become, the happier, He hasn't got degrees of happiness, but he feels it's good for us.
Are you saying that handing over the burden to Baba is really a matter of not letting it get to me, not getting caught up in it, and just keep bringing Baba into it or near me when I feel it's coming up?
Yeah, the main thing is not to identify with it. This is the whole thing that we said, detachment from the self. Yeah, because if I don't detach from my ego, if I don't detach from attachment, if I don't detach from greed, I will somehow still keep identifying with it. Or with fear, Fear is a huge vice. Huge vice. It's not one of the five, but, fear is produced by all the five. All five of those sanskars, those vices, produce fear. And it is one of the, it's really, really, a big block. And I just I can't think of any other word except trust, and to be like a child that is in Baba's embrace, and just let myself be absorbed. What is remembrance? Remembrance is that my consciousness is absorbed in the One, in the sanskars of the One, and let it keep flowing. Don't think how, when, why, if, should, could, be. Just be present. At the confluence age, this is when God Himself is present, and this is what Brahma Baba. He fully realized that and fully acted on it on a daily basis. Because if we do this on a daily basis, we feel refreshed and we feel we progress. We should never do it only when we're desperate or when we feel guilty.
I'd like to just invite everybody to take a few seconds to reflect on this, because I feel that this is going in very deep little channels, and it would be nice just to take a few seconds to let it soak in. Is that okay? A few seconds of silence just to catch it. So it's almost as if you're saying, Anthony, that after we've understood the knowledge and we've had experiences of Baba and our true self, we just really can't allow ourselves to be bothered by all these things that we would have acquired over 63 births. To stay absorbed in the remembrance of One. That's the order of the day.
Well, remembrance is that. People ask, what is remembrance? And remembrance is to be absorbed in trust and love and faith in what that One is for me. What is Baba for me? He's a companion, he's a friend, he's a purifier, he's a teacher. And as I am absorbed and experiencing these relationships, then my life will have more meaning. I mean, what is a Brahman life? It is the life of, I've chosen to be God's companion. What are the implications of that? What does that mean for me? And these are things that's good to review from time to time, and it will bring freshness, and new things will come. Baba will help me to realize also.
I find that I have a lot of thoughts of gratitude, a lot of thoughts of thanks. Could we say, in a natural way, as I'm going through the day, seeking to remain in the absorbed in the remembrance of the One. Could we say that could be a kind of sign that my mind is working in the right direction? No?
Yes, the sign also that my mind is working in the right direction is, yes, I can stop every so often and be absorbed in that peace, in that feeling of belonging to One. That is one aspect. But then another aspect is that my mind has a lot of clarity. And a lot of clarity and stability. Clarity means I can see things very quickly, so I don't get involved in the wrong things. Stability is I'm not influenced by people and situations. And so stability is a very great result of remembrance and considering my own spiritual identity. Because I would say one of the most powerful virtues these days that is necessary is stability. Because if there's not stability, how can there be really accumulation of love or permanent feelings of love, of peace, of happiness, of genuine relationship if I am not stable? If I come into fluctuation because of influence, fluctuation is always because of some influence. I'm not going to be happy, and I will start to lose trust in myself because I don't know what I'm going to do, how I'm going to react. And so, although it's overlooked as a virtue, and sometimes it's overlooked as a consequence of remembrance, stability is going to be more and more necessary as each day of the cycle progresses.
Would you say that it's somewhat present in the Yagya currently, in the family of the West, no trust in the self?
Well, I think it's generally in the world, because people don't trust, for example, their systems anymore, whether it's a political system, a religious system, especially in the West too, the relationships with wife or husband, there's not a lot of trust. And so it's a very, it's a little bit tricky, but I have knowledge. It's given by God, so I trust that. For example, I trust this is a cycle. I trust that this is the end of a cycle. You can tell, you can see. You don't have to have a great intellect for that. And Baba has given me this wonderful knowledge of the beginning, middle, and end of time. It's in my intellect, and so when I know what the time is, I know what's necessary for that time. And so if I have knowledge and I have faith in that knowledge, then I can start to trust. And this is why I have to become a child again, because when I'm childlike, then trust is easier. If I'm trying to protect myself, because there's fear, we develop great mechanisms of defense, protection, and projection. These three things we do. And there can't be trust if I get into any of these three things. So trust begins when I start to become a child again, A child doesn't analyze too much. It takes its parent's hand and says, yes, I'm with you.
Baba actually said this in the last Murli he spoke. Don't be big, become small.
Yes.
To the double foreigners he said that. I have 2 more questions. Although I think that this whole subject of fear is actually very interesting, because myself, I didn't even understand how some of the obstacles were actually rooted in fear. And I wouldn't have recognized the signs. So although we can't go into fear a lot, could you indicate what some of the signs are that we're operating from fear, and is there something more that can be said about how we can face that?
Usually when a person has fear, also pressure comes with fear.
Like a feeling of pressure?
The feeling of pressure, like sometimes, the pressure of perfection, for example. The fear of perfection. Will I get there? How long will it take? Maybe just for some and not for me. What am I doing? you know? And it's always fear that creates mistrust and suspicion. And as I said before, when a person is fearful, they're also very defensive. They don't want to hear any criticisms. And anybody that doesn't agree with them is automatically an enemy. This is fear.
Isn't this great?
Well, there are many, all this inner, and again, fear comes from this deep insecurity. And this deep insecurity has come because I've identified with wrong things, that I am these other things. And they can always be taken away. A person, a position, a talent, an achievement. These are external things. So as Baba is making a lot of effort to try to really help the soul to move away from that insecurity and all the variety of fears that come from that, and just really connect with the original self. But this, again, it begins with the intellect, but until it's really experiential, the soul then may feel okay, but it doesn't feel good. You know those days when you feel okay, you don't feel good, but you don't feel good. Or the other days when you feel bad, actually. And so I have to remind myself. And faith comes from understanding and experience. So these are very, very necessary things. And Baba has given us one yukti. He said, whenever there's something you can't do, there's something you don't understand, some things that are truly beyond you, forget it. Forget all those things and just say from your heart, Baba. When I say from my heart, Father, everything else will stop. Because the Father, you don't go into expansion of this, but automatically the Father will mean love, will mean peace, but above all, it will mean security, safeness. And then I start to stabilize, just from this word, Father. And then another word that also, it's not a word again, it's you're directing your energy to a positive point when you say Father, but also when you say, I am an eternal soul. I am this. I'm directing my energy to an eternal truth, and that will make me go beyond those fears and difficulties. But some people don't even have sometimes the strength just for these two things, just to do them. Too much doubt, too much reaction, but let me just do. Don't think, just do. That's what they used to do sometimes in Australia. They used to show us how to swim a bit, and then I remember when we were hesitant, they just said, no, the teacher was there, of course, but just put us in the water and just now do it. So the same way, well, yes, let me remember Baba, it may help. Yes, could be if I think I'm a soul, it will. Not this. I am eternal being. I am a soul. I am peace. Father, Baba. Don't think, just do it. Helps a lot. Saves many unnecessary expansions.
Very, very lovely. Very full hour has passed already. I don't know if I get to squeeze in another question, but what do you think? Should we sneak 5 more minutes? Yes? It's worth it. He's leaving soon. The aspect of helping our brothers and sisters who would be stuck at any level that you would have mentioned now, or you would have indicated, more and more Baba's signaling that the time for helping with words is finished. Can you talk a little bit about the help that now we are called on to be working with, whereby it's akash, it's vibrations, it's attitude, it's subtle? Can you say a few words about that?
I think the way to give cooperation to others is to really pay attention to my own stage of consciousness, not to have the wrong mercy, not to have the wrong detachment.
What's that? Wrong mercy and wrong detachment.
You get too involved in the problems of the other. And wrong detachment is you don't care at all about the problems of the other. So you need to avoid both. And so actually, again, very simple. If I'm in peace, I will donate peace in the atmosphere. If I am, loving, that will come into the atmosphere. I don't have to try so hard. But yes, I should have attention to care, but as Baba has said, because too many words go in the opposite direction, we'd actually do not help at all when there are too many words. And is not the time to play the savior. It's not the time. It's the time to be the spiritual friend. It's the time to be the spiritual brother and sister, and to have that caring. But Baba, it is Baba who is doing. To keep always that in the consciousness. I'm an instrument of that one's love and that one's healing and that one's peace. Yes, and this is my brother soul. So what I am inside is what's going to heal the situations outside. It's not going to be long analysis or, too many words. Not that we don't, words can be useful. It's not that they're not useful. But
that's a very different approach. What I am inside is what's going to provide the healing. So as we prepare for our 7 to 7:30 meditation, what do you do in a 7 to 7:30 meditation? Is it just the experience of yourself, the eternity, and Baba? Or is there some sakash or to the world or anything like that?
I think at 7 o'clock meditation, I always start with the incorporeal, to go beyond everything and just to be in the home, just to be with Baba, just to be with my original state of peace and purity, and to, again, be in the awareness of this, not to do it very quickly, just to be there in my home, in the incorporeal, and savor this, take the very deep flavor of the incorporeal stage. And Baba has often said that this hour is the time when angels are flying around. And so, yes, at times it is this, to take on the angelic form, see with Brahma Baba, be with him, and then let that light, like a lighthouse, the light and peace just shine forth. Again, all this is very subtle, and again, not to try so hard, because if I'm in the awareness of my server form, that is the angelic form, it will happen. That light, that peace, that vibration will spread. But personally, I always like to go to the incorporeal first and be there for some time in the home.
Great. Thank you very much, Anthony.
Thank you. Om Shanti.